You probably haven't heard of Steel Assault, and that's okay. It's not a game that a lot of folks are talking about, but it is a charmingly retro, smaller indie game. It's developed by Zenovia Interactive. It's actually their first game. The publisher, however, is pretty interesting. It's Tribute Games, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because they're the folks developing Shredder's Revenge. And this partnership seems like it makes sense because Steel Assault, like Shredder's Revenge, is a retro-style action side-scroller game. You play as Taro Takahashi, a resistance soldier in a post-apocalyptic version of the US. There are 5 stages, and the game is pretty short. It takes about an hour to complete. It's old school hard though. I mean that in the best possible way. It is challenging. There are no checkpoints, no place to continue. If you die, you have to start the level over, which is kind of how games were way back then. You have 1 life, and while you do have a life bar, it can tick down pretty quickly in some cases. Let me break down what you can do. You can jump, you can use your whip, and you can use a rather unique zipline mechanic to get around. It doesn't let you pull enemies, it just lets you attach to ledges and make jumps that would otherwise seem impossible, and some of those jumps are very difficult to pull off. There are some where you have to have nearly pixel-perfect precision to make them in time, and I wouldn't say the challenge is overly difficult, but it is something that if you're not used to playing 16-bit games, it may feel a bit challenging for you. I personally really enjoy that aspect of this game because of the fact that I grew up playing the SNES and a lot of CPS2 arcade games that were designed to eat up quarters, and Steel Assault feels like a throwback to those bygone days. I truly enjoy that aspect of it, and I think if you're up for challenges, you will too. Over the course of the 5 missions that I played, I came to love the game more and more with each passing run. My first run took me an hour to complete, while the second one I was able to drive my time down to just over 30 minutes. I anticipate that if I practice more, I'll get those times down even further, but all of what I'm telling you is on normal difficulty. On normal difficulty, your life gets replenished between each major stage, whereas on higher difficulties like Expert, you don't have the luxury of your life being replenished, although you still can continue from the beginning of whatever the last stage you got to was in case you should die. That, however, is not the case for Steel Assault's arcade mode. Arcade mode is incredibly difficult. You have 1 life to live throughout the entirety of the game, and if you die at any point, whether it's in the first stage or the last, you just have to start over. There are no continues, no restarts, nothing. That is a challenge that, frankly, I haven't yet been able to surmount, but it is there for the most hardcore of enthusiasts. You might notice that all of the footage that I'm playing of this game looks like it's on an old CRT television, and that's very much on purpose. This is the default way to play Steel Assault. In fact, there isn't a 16:9 display option as of the creation of this video. You're stuck in your 4:3 aspect ratio, and while you can turn off the rounded edges and the CRT filter, you can even add some borders in the options if you like. I much prefer to play it this way. It reminds me of sitting in front of my TV as a kid, playing Final Fight on my SNES or other games of the sort. Visually, like most games that are of this era or that want to look like they're of this era, there are things that Steel Assault does that wouldn't have been possible on 16-bit or even some 32-bit hardware like the Game Boy Advance. All in all though, Steel Assault feels like a loving callback to a bygone era of gaming, and I love it for that. I think if you pick it up and you're a fan of old school challenges, you'll probably end up liking this too. Let me know what you think of Steel Assault in the comments down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Good Vibes Gaming for more short indie reviews like this one. Ring that notification bell to be the first to know anytime we upload a new video, indie or not, and I will see you next time.